Hello and welcome to week 8 of the AHEAD webinar series through the Looking Glass. You're very welcome. My name is Christine and this is my colleague Trevor.
Hello, how are you everyone? Welcome.
We'd like to sincerely thank the HEA for funding us, which would include the work that we're doing today. We wouldn't be able to reimagine the conference without their fantastic support, and we really, really appreciate it. For anyone that would like to avail of captioning, you just need to go to the bottom of the screen and just click the closed caption options, and that should then start that option there for you. If anybody wants to interact throughout the session, also if you bring your mouse to the bottom of the screen, there's the Q&A, which we'll ask if you want to pose a direct question to any of the presenters or panelists today. Or if you want to just maybe give us some observations or comments as we go on, please use the chat feature, which is also at the bottom there. We'll also be live tweeting, so Trevor will be covering that whole area there. If you just want to follow us and even comment on Twitter as we go, please use hashtag AHEAD2020. So we have a really interesting lineup for you today. So I'll just ask Trevor if you can see that next slide.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Is it there now for you?
Yeah, perfect.
Perfect. So, what we're going to be doing is we are going to have a fantastic student panel covering the topic of make a change on and off campus with student leadership and activism. And that's going to be facilitated by our very own Hannah Kelly, the GetAHEAD Coordinator in AHEAD. And then after that, we're going to have a presentation from one of the panelists, Gillian Stafford, which will be covering a day in the life of a student with a visual impairment on campus. So how are you feeling about today, Trevor?
I am excited. I love students. I've had the pleasure of working with them and certainly advocating for them while I was working in a university in a disability service. So for me, this is going to be one of the highlights. I just think that real first-hand experience from students definitely transformed how I worked. So I'm really looking forward to how they're going to talk about their experiences, and I'm sure it's going to transform some of the ways people work in HEs today. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when we think of the way that HEs are working today is kind of maybe not the way they would have worked ever before. And the same would be for students as well. We really appreciate obviously these students giving their time, because I know some of them are preparing for a thesis and exams and everything. And we really appreciate any students as well that are participating as participants. And we really appreciate you giving your time to participate here. And hopefully there'll be other opportunities for you to participate after the session as well with us, kind of going forward as we look to support students with disabilities for access into higher and further education. We will just ask, obviously we are working in this very unusual circumstance, and we would ask that you just bear with us a little bit if you hear a bit of a dog barking in the background or a neighbour kind of children shouting over, that's just the way that we have to deal with things, as I'm sure you do as well. And we just ask that you just be a bit patient with us, and thank you very much for being here if it's your first time or if you've been with us throughout the series. We also have videos from the previous conference webinars that are on the webpage. So if anyone's interested in looking at the previous sessions, and we also have another 2 sessions. Next week's session I'll be talking about, myself and Trevor will be talking about a little bit later on. So without further ado, I think we're ready to get started. Trevor, do you think?
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. Bring them in.
Okay. So can we just ask, Hannah, would you mind sharing your video and your mic? And then what we're going to do is we'll just stop our share, and then if you want to introduce everybody, and we'll let you take it away.
Yeah, okay, thanks Trevor and Christine. So thanks everybody for tuning in today. First of all, so I think that's kind of me introduced. I'm the GetAHEAD Coordinator at AHEAD, and I'm going to echo what Christine and Trevor have said, that just thanks very much to the 3 students who have given a lot of time and effort, particularly me wanting to ring them quite often to make sure we're all on the same page here today. And I do want to encourage any students who might be listening in today or indeed anyone who's watching, to continue the conversation in the chat at the same time. So we would like to expand this conversation into the chat box and then onto Twitter as well, if you'd like to. So I'll introduce you to our students today. I might bring them all in a little bit game show hosty, one by one, so they can introduce themselves. So I'll start with Christina. If you want to unmute yourself and share your video. Brilliant. And if you want to just introduce yourself, Christina.
Brilliant. Thanks, Hannah. Hi, everyone. My name is Christina Myles from Cavan. I'm currently studying the Masters in Law in DCU after completing the Bachelor of Business and Law in Athlone IT. I have been involved in a few campaigns, particularly with Epilepsy Ireland, in trying to make awareness, like making awareness in colleges and talks, just to promote, and aware people to what epilepsy is, as it is one of the most common conditions. So it's basically me in a nutshell.
Brilliant. Thanks, Christina. Gillian, if you want to maybe unmute yourself and share your screen and tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe some of the activism or student leadership roles that you've kind of taken part in.
Yeah, thanks, Hannah. My name is Gillian Stafford. I live in Meath. I'm currently doing a Master's in Social Policy and Human Rights. I am currently a MAP ambassador for the Disability Services, and I've done a lot of work in trying to get people with disabilities to come to higher education. I also have done some media work telling my story around my visual disability. That's me.
Brilliant. Thanks, Gillian. And then finally, I'll bring in Vicky. If you want to unmute yourself and share your screen and tell us a little bit about yourself and some of the things you've been involved in.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Hannah. Thanks. So I'm Vicky Matthew from Donegal. I'm currently a student at IT Sligo studying sports with business. And before I started in college, I discovered there was no accessible buses for wheelchair users. So I started a national campaign, and ever since I've been working on getting more accessible transport across the country. And I'm now working with IT Sligo to ensure that it becomes not just accessible, but fully inclusive for all students with all disabilities, both hidden and visible.
Brilliant. So thanks, everyone, and welcome today. Thanks again for kind of giving us your time today. So you've all kind of been involved in either these student leadership or activism or self-advocacy roles. And I'm interested to know what made you decide to get involved, or did you feel like it happened organically, or was it one particular moment that you decided to get involved? If anybody wants to start.
Well, for me, it started probably organically, and also like when I first heard of being diagnosed with epilepsy, to promote and people make aware, it kind of helped me heal as well, in that, when I was in college, there wasn't much talk about it and what to do. And then I was just like, right, there must be more people in a similar situation to me. So to help other people, it kind of helped me as well. So yeah, it's kind of a healing process, I felt. Making people aware.
I think from reading all of your submissions or looking through all of your very impressive list of things that you've been involved in, that seems to be a theme through all of your kind of journeys, was that it was even less about yourself initially, but more about wanting to make other people who maybe had the same disability or disabilities in general feel like they had a voice in some way. So I think that's really interesting. So I think we couldn't maybe have a student panel in the current climate and not touch on COVID-19 and touch on working from home situations. So I might ask, first of all, how you've all been doing with working from home, what your experience been. Vicky, I might get you to start.
Well, for me personally, at the beginning when I heard everything was going online, I thought, this would be good, because 20 years ago, I done distant learning when I was working full time, and it was very manageable. But this time around, I find it very stressful. It's hard to get motivated, to get settled in. I think as well, the lecturers had to learn what way they were going to teach us online, and confusion. And I think, with students maybe who have visual or hearing disabilities, they would have struggled a lot more. because you have everything that's going on in the outside world. And it's not just students with disabilities. This will be affecting students right across the board, that the external factors will be affecting levels of concentration, scheduling, getting free time, you know, to settle down and study. So I think it's a lot harder on students generally.
Yeah, brilliant. Gillian, do you have any thoughts on that, or to share your experience?
Yeah, I just find it, I'm coming from a different way. I find it harder because I have a visual disability, so it's hard enough when you're in college itself to be doing your work, to be getting things that you need. But when we went online, it was like, it was really sudden that we went online. So, and the problem was with our lectures was that the college, Maynooth College, even though they're really good, they just did it for all students, and they didn't realise until say first week into it that they had to adapt their materials for people with disabilities. And then also as well, I live at home, so I had to look after my parents, which was another responsibility on me. So my motivation went on me. It's like I nearly had to pull myself to sit down at a computer to do the work that was due to be submitted, because I had other things. If I tried to sit down at the computer, I had other responsibilities that was pulling me away from doing my assignments. So it has been a challenge going remote learning.
And I think that that's a really good point, Gillian. And I think it's something that reflects on a recent survey that we conducted in AHEAD with learners with disabilities around this whole situation and working from home, both with students from further education and higher education. And through that survey, 52% of those who filled in the survey felt like they weren't coping well with working from home. And some of the challenges they talked about were definitely that lack of motivation, and that could have been because of the lack of structure of working from home. And like you touched on there, Gillian, the other demands and stuff that they already had at home. And then also they felt like there was maybe in some parts a lack of communication or clear communication from their college or institution around how it was going to work. And indeed, I think it was, like you touched there, Gillian, it was a scramble, I think, at the start, and students really felt that, and were having to deal with their home lives being turned upside down, as well as their college life. So it wasn't just one. And like you said, Vicky, it's not as if they were just now learning from home. They were learning from home in the context of a crisis, a pandemic going on. So I think that's really important. And I wanted to touch next on then the assistive technology. And first of all, have any of you been using assistive technology from home? And if you were, is that different from your experience of what you were using already in college? Gillian, I know you have some experiences of this.
Yeah, I do, yeah. I find it really hard because I have a laptop which is really good, and even this week trying to get ready for this presentation, I've had challenges. My software is not big enough to cope with that I use for my assistive technology. Is not big enough to cope. It's too big to cope with the likes of Zoom or Office 365. So if I'm trying to use one of those programs for a lecture, I can't use my assistive technology. So it means then I have to make sure that there's somebody in the house with me that can get me set up on the platforms that I need to use to be able to attend my lectures. And then also I'm finding that if I need something that I can't read by my software that my department sends to me, I have to ask my mum or dad to read it for me. And they don't know what they're studying. It's not their master's, it's mine. And they're not sure of my topic. So it's very hard for them to try and read it to me, for me to take notes or to understand what they're saying. So I just find it's been a big challenge doing it from home.
Yeah, and I think that really puts, I think when you first shared that with me, Gillian, it really struck that that's a huge undertaking and a huge extra workload on you, having to manage not only your own time, but asking what the schedules of people at home, when they can, assist you with your reading materials, and indeed even putting you on your lectures and stuff like that. It's almost like you're doubling the workload. And relying heavily on other people, and whereas before, I imagine with the use of your assistive technology, there was a lot more independence in your learning. So I think that could be hugely challenging. And what about Vicky or Christina? Have you any experience of working with AT?
Well, I've used it to record notes and that, so I can listen back, but unfortunately my recording pen broke, but I've adapted. I now record all my notes on PowerPoint and record it as a video, read into it and then listen. But, you know, it's just an extra tool for me. It's, you know, I'm sure there's loads of students like Gillian that really need this technology. So I think, you know, with the COVID crisis continuing, colleges need to look into that to prepare, you know, to give students the technology they need to be able to work at home.
Yeah.
You know, in the coming semesters.
Yeah. What about yourself, Christina?
Yeah, I'm the same as Vicky, recording the notes, especially text help, because I find when I do assignments, the spelling does be desperate. So with text help, I just, you know, it records it, you read it back and you're like, oh my God, I can't spell. And when you do law, it's quite tough because you have to be able to spell. So text help has been a massive help to help with that.
So I might go back, Gillian, on that issue, which is a huge undertaking for you in your degree to now be relying so much on other people. And I'm interested to know what has been the response in your college. How have you reached out maybe to communicate these challenges, or have you done that, and what was your experience of that?
Yeah, it's been really good. I reached out because when I was in college, I used to have extra tuition every Wednesday for 2 hours with one of my tutors. So when things eventually settled down after about 2 weeks, my access officer got that set up for me on Teams and Office 365. So I'm able to have 2 hours every week doing it that way. But it's still very hard because if you're working on an assignment, what I find is if I'm sitting with someone and they say to me, right, that paragraph is wrong, what would you think about it? But sometimes it's a delay because my Wi-Fi isn't great at the moment. So sometimes there's a delay, and I find that if I'm not sitting with the person who's correcting my work or helping me read something, I don't get it. It takes me longer. I have to be sitting with the person. It's just my way of learning is that if I have or I'm sitting with that person, I take it in much quicker. Where I'm finding out for me to do an assignment, it can take me 3 weeks to do an assignment because I'm having to rely on another person to do it, and they have to have the time to do it, and they're busy in the colleges as well. So it's like a time lapse sometimes between you sending an email looking for help and them getting back to you, because they're really busy with remote learning as well, and they have so many students. So they are helping me, but they have other students as well that are doing exams or doing work that they need to be working on. So it's a learning process from my end and from their end, but they are very good with me.
And I'm wondering, as we kind of, I think it's we all kind of had that discussion, I think, a few times about how there was that scramble at the start for everyone to, you know, adapt to this type of way of learning and of teaching and of supporting students, and the kind of whole spectrum. And when we look at maybe this being the situation going forward, so into when colleges start up for a new semester in September, what advice would you give to lecturers and to support staff on how to support in this kind of new way of learning? Is there a particular kind of thing that you would be looking for?
I would just say is that if they know there's a student coming in, like if they know there's a student coming in September that has a disability, to try and touch base with them a couple of times over the summer and see what they're going to need, if it's going to be remote learning or if they're going to be in. Because if they know, say a couple of weeks before the student is due to start, they will be able to sit down with that department and look at ways of helping them in making documents more accessible for them, or if they need certain software, that'll be in for them in their homes or whatever by the time they start in September. So I think that could be a way of things moving forward for new students going in September.
Yeah. And what about yourself, Vicky or Christina, if you have any inputs there?
I think it's a question of funding as well. Some colleges would have more free available funding to help students. So I think that the colleges should be reaching out to the government to provide additional funding for computers, software, not just for students with disabilities, but disadvantaged students as well. You know, people have lost their jobs, they're not going to have extra cash lying around, say, to buy laptops because college libraries are going to be shut. You know, you're not going to be able to all cram in and book a computer because you're going to have social distancing. So I think this is something that needs to be looked at by the colleges with the government.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting point. I think going forward, we really do have to explore the opportunities that might arise in terms of some of the maybe students with disabilities or other funding be able to provide some support with physical technologies that I know for you, Gillian, would really help a lot if you had a physical laptop that was able to, you know, handle the two softwares working side by side. What about yourself, Christina? Would you have any advice?
As yeah, actually, as Vicky and Gillian said, like to provide people with laptops with software on it is such a difference. You know, and the funding needs to be there if this is to continue, because it's very hard for students as with disabilities and without disabilities to have a software to actually provide them. I think that would be a huge help in helping with remote learning, massive help, because it's hard to get software when you've got bad Wi-Fi.
Yeah, yeah. And I think I might park COVID-19 for a minute. We might come back to it if we've time later, but I don't want to spend, I suppose, all our time talking about the current situation and maybe talk a little bit more generally, because I know one of the conversations that have come up a lot and an issue that I think is quite relevant for most people, most students with disabilities, is that around disclosure. You know, when to disclose your disability, how to do that, and what to kind of expect when that happens. So I'm interested if you could share your own personal experiences of disclosure and how that was for you and how you kind of came about that decision to disclose. Vicky, if you wanted to start us off.
Well, mine's very easy. I can't hide my disability. I'm a wheelchair user. So for me, there's no problem in disclosing it. But I do know on my campus, there's a lot of students with hidden disabilities that don't sign up with the disability office or the support office. They don't want other students, their lecturers, anybody knowing they have a disability. There's a stigma around it. So it's about opening it up and removing the stigma so all students can get the support they need.
And what about yourself, Christina?
Well, Vicky's just pointed on it in terms of hidden disabilities. That's what mine is. And when the hardest part for me was actually entering the disability office and saying, do you know what, I actually have one. That was the hardest part of disclosure, was actually entering the office. And once I did that, I kind of felt a pressure off my shoulders that, you know, I have this now, I need to come to terms with it. And the disability office has been so good, and I'm not afraid to disclose anymore. And I think that's what a lot of people, you know, like once you take the first step, it becomes so much easier. And that's what I felt.
And I think it's interesting, and it's something that I've seen come up a lot, maybe on Twitter or on social media, with different students with disabilities talking about the relation between identity and disability, and where that kind of can sometimes play a part too. So I'm interested, not to sidetrack us too much, but to get your insights into that, because I know some students would really identify with the word disabled and would really find comfort in that. And like you kind of said, Christina, you gain confidence from seeing it as part of your identity, and that might make disclosure easier. But for a lot of students, maybe that isn't the case, and it isn't something that they necessarily see as part of what makes them up, as just something that, you know, is part of their experience. So how do you think that disclosure piece can differ depending on where you kind of fall on that spectrum? Vicky, I know you've worked with a lot of students, so you might have some insights.
Well, in my college, a lot, like I said, a lot of them have hidden disabilities or medical conditions. So I set up an inclusion and disability club on campus. So it didn't matter whether you were disabled or not, everybody could come along and learn about all these different conditions and disabilities, and got loads of sign-ups. And when you held the meetings, nobody showed up. But then I had the students that were stopping me in the corridor or in the cafe and saying, Vicky, oh, this is an issue, or that is an issue. What do you advise? Can we do something about it? They didn't even want to, you know, go into a room and meet up with maybe like-minded people and develop it, because they didn't want anybody recognizing that there was something wrong with them. Well, to me, there's nothing wrong with them.
Yeah.
I don't actually class myself as disabled or a person with a disability. I'm a human being. We're all human beings. We're all students, regardless of our abilities. You know, so it's about, to me, taking away completely this barrier, whether it's access or inclusion, that we all come together, and when it's no longer a stigma, nobody's going to have a problem disclosing, whether it's, you know, like Christina, epilepsy, or maybe they're hard of hearing, or they've a learning disability, or they're dyslexic. They're going to reach out and get the help, because nobody's going to be sitting in judgment. But
And
if you don't open that door, like,
yeah,
nothing's going to change.
and I think that's definitely a goal that I think we've all discussed, that we're all maybe working towards. And I'm interested to hear if you think there's anything, or what your advice would be, or what tips you would give maybe to support staff and for lecturers for making that disclosure piece easier for students. Gillian, I don't know if you have any thoughts.
Yeah, when I found, because when I started college, I knew I had my disability, but when I walk in, I have a hidden disability, because I don't use a cane, I don't have a guide dog. So even though I have a vision impairment, I look normal. So what I would say to lecturers or to support staff, that sometimes a person can have a severe hidden disability that they don't know about, and sometimes it's very hard for you as a person. You're trying to get used to college, it's so big, the classes are big, that it takes a lot for you to go up and tell someone or talk to a lecturer and explain your disability to them. So I think that sometimes they just need to be a bit more understanding that you may not show that you have a disability, but you do have it yourself. And if it might be your first time in disclosing it to somebody in the college that you've never been in before, it takes a lot mentally and physically for you to get the strength to go up to that person and explain what you have. And I know that I've had about 20 lecturers, and out of them, 16, 17 of them have been okay, and maybe 3 haven't been, because they don't know what to do or how to handle within a class. So I think they just need a little bit more kind of understanding and a bit more training around that not all disabilities are shown, that we have hidden disabilities as well. And they just need to have a little bit more understanding that if a person's going up to disclose, it takes a lot for them to go up and talk to that lecturer, or walk in for the first time into a disability office and ask for help when they haven't done it before. Because I know it was a challenge for me, but once I got into second year, and even now, I've no problem going up. But some students mightn't have the confidence that, say, I would have, or others would have. They might be too shy to go up and talk, and then they fall behind in the class. But the lecturer might know why they're falling behind, and if they speak up, they can get help, and it will help them move on then in their degree.
And I think that's a hugely... Oh, Vicky, yeah, if you wanted to come in on that.
Yeah, like Gillian was saying, it's the first step in, even to the disability office. So maybe, you know, we can learn from this experience being at home, that an online service could be set up, so that a student in the comfort of their own home could, you know, disclose to the disability and support, and they then could disclose to lecturers on your behalf and explain, you know, what your needs are. You know, they're the people that have the training and knowledge to look at what the college can support you in what way. So I think, you know, maybe something like this would work.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Office.
I think it's a great idea, and something that could definitely be explored, because it's something that I think is interesting. When we talked about this issue of disclosure before COVID, none of us thought, what if we do it online? But now that the whole online world has become something that we've got quite used to, and now we're kind of getting all quite good at using it and being innovative in how we use it, maybe it's something that we don't forget about, that this is an option, and looking at maybe incorporating that going forward. I think that's a great idea. What about yourself, Christina? I seen you nodding throughout the whole, so I imagine you agree. Do you have anything else that you wanted to add?
Yeah, no, I'd be nodding at it, because the online services is such a good idea. Even like just to have like a forum to say, you know, I have a disability, could get some help. And it also might help with laptops as well, like going forward, that if you know, if you do it online, an online forum, they could actually provide you with laptops, a disability service, instead of going into the office to do it online. It would be a huge help, because as both of them have said, like, you know, it's hard to go into an office and it's hard to disclose in person, whereas if you do it, you know, if you do it online, it might be that wee bit easier. But yeah, it's tough either way, I find.
Yeah.
But, you know, once you do it, you don't look back.
I think it's that mix between those two things of lecturers having the awareness to accept that information that they're hearing, and to be able to understand the information that they're hearing when someone discloses, and also that second piece of how do we connect with students and give them the skills to self-advocate for themselves, when obviously the three of you are advocates in your own right, and activists in your own institutions, that you've become quite comfortable in that role. But I think it's very important, and something that you all make very clear, is that not everyone is there in their journey, and that we need to appreciate that not everyone is going to feel comfortable going up to a lecturer and asking for their needs. So I think that's a great point too. I wanted to touch on the kind of the other side of college, the social life of college, which I'm sure seems maybe a million miles away now that we're all stuck at home. But I wanted to look at how disclosure has been, or how that conversation has been around supports or accommodations in a social aspect to do with clubs and societies. Christina, you might have something to come in on there.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a big GAA head on me, so anything to do with GAA. But to disclose on the GAA pitch, like, you know, I was quite good at football. I wasn't saying I was brilliant, but it was very hard to disclose, you know, my condition on a GAA pitch, because I didn't want to be seen as different. You know, I'm still that big GAA footballer, but I mean, I found it so hard to disclose, because, you know, it's just the fear of people treating you different, in terms of, you know, just saying, you know, you can't play football. And it made me scared, because for a year I didn't play football at all. I didn't even go out and kick a ball. But now football's a big part of my life, and it's actually given me the love back in football. So I don't have a problem disclosing anymore with clubs.
Brilliant. That's great to hear, and I think it's that piece is really important, that, you know, you don't want to be seen as different, and you don't know maybe how students are going to react, your peers are going to react to that information. Vicky, I know you might have some experience of this, that you or of other students have experience of this that you might come in on.
Well, I've had no problem in IT Sligo. Like, the whole college is accessible for wheelchair users, but I joined the IT Sligo Aikido club. The teacher there, he was like, I've never taught anyone in a wheelchair. And I go, well, I've never learned martial arts before. Like, will you give it a go? No bother. You know, I was with the dance society in the wheelchair. It was great. They're all very welcoming. But it needs to be you that goes out and looks for it. You know, you have to push the buttons, and they'll be looking like, is it safe? Is it not safe? You know, but we can build on that. And hopefully, you know, with GetAHEAD and with the Student Union of Ireland, we will build and make all clubs and societies inclusive for everybody.
Yeah, I know that's something that I worked on quite a bit last year, with different SUs and with individual committee heads, like the chairs or vice chairs of societies. We went to a few of them, as many as we could, and tried to give them some disability awareness training, because I think it kind of echoes back in what we were advising around lecturers, is that awareness piece is so important. So people, it's not that maybe students don't want to support or don't want to help someone feel included, but they maybe don't have the tools to, or they just don't know anything about disability. So I think that piece is really important, and it's something that I'm quite passionate about doing, is because, I mean, I know when I think back on my years in college, I think about the clubs and societies that I was involved in, and they greatly, you know, not only for my CV and stuff like that, but it was a part of the experience, part of my growth as, while in university. So I think that's a great point too. What about yourself, Gillian?
Yeah, I found it a challenge. especially with some of the clubs and societies in Maynooth, because you had to go up and disclose it, and some of them, because, as I say, if you don't have, a lot of them would say to me, well, you look normal, so why are you disclosing to us? So a lot of the clubs wouldn't accept me in. Now, I didn't take it because at that time I knew that it wasn't me. It was just because they weren't sure of my disability. But I got involved with the Access Society and I did loads of events with them. I got involved with the orientation leaders. So even though I couldn't get involved with the clubs and societies part of it, I found my voice within the other side of it. But sometimes, because they don't know what your disability is as well, if you go in to ask, can you join a club or society, for health and safety, they'll ask you to, get a doctor's letter. But if they're not sure of the disability, sometimes they're not sure if you can be included in the club and society. So it might be that they're not letting you in. It might be just because they're not sure of how to deal with your disability because they've never had someone like you before. So they're maybe used to other disabilities, but this might be new grounds for them. And I know from me being involved with different things, I started to teach them how to deal with people with visual disabilities who didn't use a symbol to show that they had it, and we've done a lot of work. And then in second year, I could get involved in more stuff because they knew, the unions knew then what my disability was. So then they were able to teach other people what it was, and we could get involved in more stuff then. So yeah. I think that's the thing. Once they know what it is, sometimes it's not that they're not letting you in, it's just they don't know what that disability is and how to help you in a club or society.
Yeah, I think that can often be where people's minds go first, is that health and safety, and they're afraid of maybe doing the wrong thing. So instead what they do is closing that opportunity off, which of course, for you, Gillian, it took you a lot of work then to be able to go, no, actually I can explain to you how you can support me best. And a challenge that I think is a little bit complicated is around the funding and how students who want to get involved in a club or society, and maybe they need a piece of tech or some sort of support that will require a bit of money, who funds that, I think can be a challenge, because obviously that wouldn't come out of the fund for students with disabilities, but then the societies themselves are student led and they don't have an awful lot of money either. So I think it's something that can be quite a challenge, and I don't know if any of you had any experience of that, or whether you needed any accommodations that required any funding. No. Yeah, I think it's a complicated one. So I wanted to look maybe at what do you think that impact, I think you touched on it there, Gillian, the impact of when one person discloses. Do you feel like that society can then in itself just become more inclusive and accessible because that one person made the first move? Gillian, I don't know if you...
I think that it depends on the organisation.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I found. I'm in my 4th year now in college, and all through from start, every time I've explained it to someone. So even in doing my masters now, I'm still... people are still learning from me because they've never had someone like me on campus before, so with my type, so they are learning. But I have to say that when I did disclose it the first time, I disclosed with the Access office, and then I met with my departments, the heads of my department and the students' union, when we met all together and I started explaining what could be done. They understood it more, so then there was more done. Then like there was a campaign done one year in there all around visual impairment, and they had like activities where you would wear a blindfold and you'd have to do competitions to kind of earn a prize. And since then it's become more inclusive in it. So I think it depends on the organisation and what funding they have and whether they want to get on board as well with changing things when you disclose it to them. So, and also I think it depends on the person, how confident and willing they are in disclosing and how much they're willing to not exactly fight, but keep pushing and pushing. Every time you get knocked back, you can either sit down or you go, right, I'm going to go to the next person and I'm going to keep explaining to them, and they're learning from what you're explaining to them. So that's my experience.
Yeah, brilliant. And Christina or Vicky, did you have anything?
Well, I was just going to say, like the three of us were all very active in promoting inclusion and fighting for disability rights. So, I've lost between my thought. If we advocate with a strong voice and, fight for the inclusion and show the way, it will encourage others to take that step forward. There's no doubt about it. But I think it would be a good idea that all the student unions, at least one member of their staff, has disability training. So they have a better understanding, of students when they do come to them with their hidden or visible disabilities. And then they can advocate and work with clubs and societies to make it more accessible for them and include us in the conversation. There's no point in, somebody who can see deciding what the policy is going to be regarding students with visible disabilities, or somebody who can walk making, decisions about what a person in a wheelchair can and cannot do. So there should be a committee set up where an invitation is brought for a representative for every type of disability or medical condition, that we can have a representative on a panel that maybe meets up every semester and can put forward new paths that can make things better for everybody.
I think that's a great suggestion, because I think that whole idea of nothing about us without us really comes in there, and particularly in terms of making policy, like you were saying there, or trying to advise on what, if an SU is trying to advise clubs and societies how to operate without the input from students themselves who are facing these barriers, it's going to be a shot in the dark completely on what kind of advice they're given. So I think that's a great practical idea, is to have that panel that they can touch base with. I think that's really important, and it's something I know that us in AHEAD have been working on, where we would attend the last year or two USI's training in the middle of the summer for incoming welfare officers, and would be able to give some training around disability awareness. So hopefully, that can be planting the seed in starting the conversation, I suppose. Christina, did you want to come in there?
Yeah, it's quite funny. Well, it's not really funny, but in at Lone IT in my last year, they actually held a disability week, and it was probably one of the best things to hold, was the disability week, because we got to know and understand a lot of disabilities from that week. From actually, Gillian, you're visually impaired. We actually got to learn a lot about that. And with mine and a few others, it was unreal though, because people actually got to see what it was like and got to hear personal stories from people who had disabilities. And even if they could incorporate that into college life, it really would improve it for clubs and societies, because they could understand it a bit better than they actually do now.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, and I think that's something that's popping up more and more. I'm seeing a couple of those disability weeks becoming part of an SU's calendar, I suppose. So I think that's great that your experience is so positive with one of those weeks. And I just wanted to highlight quickly something that AHEAD have set up in the last couple of weeks. Initially, to kind of act as a support, I suppose, through COVID and studying from home. We've set up a student disability forum it's basically a Facebook group for students who have disabilities to come on and maybe ask questions of their peers or share their own experiences. So if any student is listening and would like to be part of that forum, they can do so. So you can email me at hannah.kelly@ahead.ie. I'm sure my details are Christine or Trevor might share them at the end, and you can get involved with that. So to kind of leave one last question, I suppose, to wrap up, I'm wondering if you have any advice for incoming students who are about to come into what is quite a different initial year or initial few months in college than what any of us might have experienced. If you have any advice for them going into their first year, and I'll start with Christina.
Well, if I was giving myself advice back in first year, I'd say don't be afraid. Like, don't be afraid of walking into a disability office, because they're not going to bite you, they're going to help you. So that would be my, that would be my advice. Just don't be afraid. I know it's tough, and it's one of the most hardest things you're going to do, but once you do it, you'll never look back. And that's the way I'd go if I had to give any bit of advice. Maybe just have fun, because then 4 years, they will fly by. So just enjoy it. Like, having a disability means you're having an ability. So don't let that, don't let that deter you. Just let it drive you on.
Brilliant. Thanks, Christina. And Vicky?
I'd advise them to contact the disability and supports officers, like Gillian was saying earlier, before they actually go to college, so they can have it set up before they go. So the supports will be there before, and then, like Christina says, have fun, enjoy it. Your life's just beginning,
Brilliant. And Gillian?
Yeah, I just say the same. I just say to students, if they're going to their college and they have an idea of where they're going, get in touch over the summer with the college. If it's online, you won't be able to attend in person, but go online, find out what the number is for the disability office. A lot of them are online now. They're answering questions, and get in touch with the college or the admissions office and have a chat with them online and see what it is. And if you have a disability, go and talk to them, and don't think about, when you get in your first couple of weeks, don't think about leaving in the first couple of weeks. You may have a disability, but once you've talked about it and you have help, they're going to be the best years of your life.
Brilliant. Okay, I think we'll leave it there. So I want to thank you all again so much. I think that was such a valuable insight from all of you, and I really appreciate the time and the sharing and how open you've all been. So thanks so much, and I would encourage people. I'll be reading the chat now in the background once we've all finished. But I encourage you to all continue this conversation on Twitter, or join that student forum as well if you're interested. So thanks, everybody.
No, thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
everybody who joined and listened.
Thank you so much, Hannah. Thank you, guys. That was riveting. My head is spinning, and it's really, thank you all so much. If you wouldn't mind hanging on, though, we're going to just ask everybody that's been listening and buzzing in the chat to maybe just give you a few seconds to maybe go through some of their questions, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I'd say the throats are a bit dry now after all that chatting. The cup of tea, have it ready. So if anyone has any questions, and I might ask Trevor if he wants to come back on, maybe even just to reflect some. There was one or two comments there in the chat there, was there?
There was, yeah. It's just amazing who is talking. I mean, the message of disclosure is always so powerful, even though we're seeing more and more students every year disclosing, coming forward. It's, I think, still staff still kind of connect with it, because I suppose all staff, and I suppose like whether academic staff, they all want to be part of helping and promoting that disclosure conversation. So I think that there was a few comments. If I scroll back, I probably can't find the person now because I've been tweeting. I have been tweeting some of the comments, so I've been trying to put them in the Twitter, so they'll be live there as well. But I just think what you're saying is probably going to alleviate kind of I suppose concerns of people, because I really like what you're saying about societies and clubs as well, better understanding students with disabilities as well, because I think not only them but other non-academic services probably all want to be part of that disclosure, that approachable, understanding kind of ethos that happens within the universities. Hi, Vicky. Sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to pop in as well that it's not just students with disabilities. I know in my college alone, there's a lot of staff with visible, hidden disabilities and medical conditions. So they are there to actually work with you for something better. You also have students that have family members at home who have disabilities and medical conditions. And, by opening it all up, you're making the world better. But even for yourself, because you could be perfectly healthy at this moment in time, but something could happen along the line and you end up with a disability. So if you're looking as an able-bodied person that the college is inaccessible, and maybe you have a child later on in life you're going, oh no, college was horrible for my classmate. Whereas if you open it up that this could be happening to someone you love or yourself one day, then you're going to get everybody to come together and work towards inclusion.
Yeah. And I totally agree. And that's why I love the idea of colleges or universities having a disclosure policy for not only students, but for staff as well. Because I think if you create that disclosure atmosphere within university for everyone, then, I mean, both staff and students are going to feel secure and safer and more open around just disclosing. So, and again, I like the idea of disclosure being two-sided as well. So, you know, like staff feeling secure about it as well as students, because I think all that's going to foster that kind of atmosphere. So there's two questions in the Q&A box. Sorry, I really want to talk to the students, but I'm going to resist. Okay, so the first question is from Sarah, someone I think we know this person, Dara Ryder. Do you believe it's important for colleges to listen to students with disabilities when planning their services? If so, how could colleges go about asking students what they think? God, well, I know Vicky's probably chomping at the bit for that one. So, like, Vicky, do you want to have a go and see where you go with it?
Well, like I said before, we need to set up a student committee made up of students with all disabilities and medical conditions, and let them meet the staff and put their ideas forward, because what I need is like accessible lifts up and down, doors that you can press, you know, buzzers to open. But what Gillian needs is something completely different to me. So like I couldn't just go there and represent all students with a disability because I don't have a clue. It has to be universal. We all have to be in it together. So a panel needs to be set up.
And so I'm just wondering, so Gillian or Christina, are you on any kind of committee yourselves within the college or universities you're studying, kind of giving feedback?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've been involved with a few, kind of my final year, I was involved a bit with the Access Office. So if they had people coming in for health and safety, looking or equality, they would get a panel of people with different disabilities in, and we would go in and we would sit in front of them, and they would ask us questions, and we would give our experience of getting around campus. So I've been involved in 2 panels in the last year.
Great, fantastic. That's really good. And Christina, yourself, have you been involved in anything or?
Well, like talking about disabilities, I've been involved in that, and how you know how colleges can actually accustom to it. So pretty much that'd be it. Like,
I mean, that's all part of that disclosing opening agreement. And sorry, there's one last question from Maria Carmen. I think, Maria, you're a returning attendee, so welcome back. Have you been taught in an environment that has used a university designed learning approach, and how did you feel about it? So are you aware that there's been a university designed campus where you're studying? Has that term been used within the campus you're studying? So, you know, maybe a campus or services that would be considered university designed. So can you interact with different things in different ways, or how is information communicated to you? So for the likes of lectures, do you have access to recordings of lectures, maybe not only just sitting there live, but is there options or choices that you have available about how you engage with on-campus activities?
Well, lecturers give, like when the disability office was talking to me, the lecturers was given the opportunity to record, which wasn't a bad idea, but some of the lecturers didn't want that, so they wouldn't let you record. I don't know why, but some of them wouldn't.
Okay. So you'd like to see just more options or better recording facilities really for students who would need them, I suppose.
Yeah. Exactly, like, and lecturers not to refuse.
Okay. Yeah, that's a fair enough concern. Yeah. Okay.
And if I just might chime in as well here, as well, I think that it's been fantastic, the insights that you guys have brought on in relation to kind of disclosure, especially around kind of that social aspect, which is kind of that softer side of things. It's kind of a bit harder to kind of, when you're talking to other students as well. And I think that we have a lot of attendees here coming from further education, and training, and I know that, you know, they're also, you know, there'd be a lot of that as well in further education and training, and that disclosure piece is maybe a little bit different, but I think it's just as important as well. So I think there's so much you can go through. God, I think I'm going to look at this recording, you know, throughout the next few years. It's going to be great. I think if nobody else has any more questions, we might move on to the next piece, which is a presentation by Gillian, if that's okay with everybody. I just really want to just emphasize to everybody, if you have any other comments, I know there's lots of comments coming through the chat, so you guys are probably going to have a bit of fun looking through those later on. But please, if you have any comments for the speakers, you can use it on the chat feature. Maybe we'll have time at the very end, or you can also use the hashtag ahead 2020 to go on Twitter and share your views as well. Thank you all so much. This has been absolutely phenomenal. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm just going to ask, if you wouldn't mind, Vicky and Christina and Hannah, just please stop sharing your videos. And then what I'm going to do is, Gillian, if you wouldn't mind just sharing your presentation.
Yeah.
I know you're straight from one to the other.
I know. It's going to go now.
No, it's going to be
We shall
fantastic.
see.
And Gillian's presentation is a day in the life of a student with a visual impairment on campus. And I suppose it's more than just on campus these days, isn't it? It's remote as well.
It is, yes.
So without further ado, I'll let you go ahead. And I can see everything okay there. We just need to probably just put it on the play presentation and it should be good to go, I think.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gillian Stafford, and I'm just going to ask Christine to put up a poll that'll be on for the next 2 minutes. My title is A Day in the Life of a Student with a Visual Impairment on campus, and also a bit about the COVID-19 as well. So I'm currently doing a Master's in Social Policy and Human Rights in Maynooth University. I graduated last September with a BA in Social Science, and I am going to finish my Master's in July this year. And I am the first one in my family to go to 3rd level education, and I also have a visual disability.
There's a lot coming through on the poll.
Sorry, it's after sticking on me.
No problem at all. I'll just read out the poll as well, Gillian, just so everyone has it. So it's imagine you are a student on campus and you see someone with a long cane who is looking lost. What do you do? Option 1, approach them and ask them if they need help. Option 2, walk straight by them. Option 3, ask them where they are going and would they like you to bring them to the location. Option 4, other. Or option 5, I don't know what to do.
Sorry, now my screen is just frozen on me.
Don't worry at all. We've got lots of people busy looking at this poll anyway, so there's plenty to go through there. You just let me know if you want me to do anything on this side.
No, do you know what? It was just on my phone. The poll froze it on my phone, so it wouldn't.
The beauties of technology
Yeah,
when it works.
You know, it's fine. It's just when the poll came up, it seemed to freeze the whole thing on me. So I'm okay. I think it's okay now.
Perfect. You let me know when you want me to end the poll.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
I'm just going to end the poll, and then will I share the results with you?
Yeah, you can share the results. Yeah.
Okay. So everyone should see that. So that's number 1. Approach them and ask if they need help. 70%. Ask if. Yeah. Can you see it?
Yeah, I can see that's really high. I didn't expect it to be that high.
And then the 23% ask where they are going and would they like you to bring them to the location. And then 5% I don't know what to do, and 2% walk straight by them.
Yeah, the top one, I was very surprised because sometimes that people don't know what to do. So it's
Yeah.
kind of, it's great to see that people actually know what to do.
Okay, will I stop sharing those now?
Yes, please. Yeah.
No problem. So you might need to just X out of the poll. I think individually, if anyone still sees the poll box in front of them. And then once it is, I'd say, Gillian, if you want to click on the next, on the slide itself, it might move along.
Okay, good. Yeah, it does. Thank you.
No problem.
So I'm going to talk about a bit about my experience on campus versus someone else's. When I started college, it was a big challenge for me. It's up to this day, it still is a challenge. I don't use a long cane as a symbol, so a lot of people think that I'm normal, but I don't have any side vision for getting around campus. So I find it very challenging to get around campus when it's busy. I also find it very hard to get resources for me. So a lot of the books that are online don't work with my software. So I rely on a note taker. I also have a PA who helps me. But the problem with that is that the note takers that I have aren't interested in my subjects because they're not doing my degree. You're also relying on someone who has to transfer the books into audio, which takes a long time. So you can't get your stuff done as quick as another person. So it's very hard and it's very stressful to get things done. You're also having to chase them up. So in my 4 years that I've been on college, I haven't been able to get involved in a lot of clubs and societies or extracurricular activities because I didn't have the time. I was in so many meetings to get things that I needed done through access, through my departments, which I would have been lost without. I wouldn't have come out with my degree if I didn't have them. One of the big difference that I have found on campus that I have experienced is that because I look normal and I don't use a symbol to show that I'm visually impaired, a lot of the times, especially in classes, when people found out I had this, they didn't believe that I had my disability. So I felt like I didn't fit in on campus. I didn't fit in my class, but I still kept going and I still got support from my access office, from my family, and it kept me going through college, and I ended up graduating and going on to do my master's. So the big one at the moment, which I'm struggling with, is remote learning with the COVID-19. I have a new laptop which has been working fine in the college, but since I've had to go online and do meetings with Zoom or with Office 365, I have found that with this, that my software I use is too big to use with another package on the laptop I have. So it means I'm relying on my college lecturers to help me out with materials that I need. My parents are very good. They help me to read stuff for me. But it's not ideal. I want to be independent. I was independent when I was in college. But since I've come home to work with Wi-Fi not working and laptops not working properly, that I feel like my independence has been taken away from me, that I can't learn the way I was learning when I was in college. So hopefully going forward, that when things do come back in September, that there will be more experience of how to work with laptops that work with different softwares for people with disabilities. So my personal recommendations from my lived experiences is that colleges are making changes in the right direction, but there are a few suggestions that maybe I could give that would improve students on campus with a visual disability. So my main one would be that have more accessible documents or more books, or if you're able to, that the departments would be more aware of how to put their documents and their PowerPoints and their lecture notes into more accessible documents. One of the ones I have found at the moment is that I'm getting documents from my department, but they have voiceover on them, the recordings over them. So my voiceover doesn't know whether to go by the lecture or to go by what's on the page. So it's a big thing to try and decipher which I should be learning. Is it the recording or the notes that are on the system? So it would be great if departments had a bit more training in how documents are accessible for anyone with a disability who are on campus, and maybe have some more ebooks online that softwares can read. That we may not be able to read the books online, but if a lecturer needs that book in our assignment, that we would be able to access that book online, so that we're not having marks taken away from us. So my big thing is that awareness is key. So from my experience, I would like to see that on the first week when you do an orientation week, when you're coming into college, is that I would like to see that the people who are giving this, that they have disability awareness training during orientation week. Because when I started college, I found that it was hard to get around and to get through that week of orientation and how to get around campus. But in my first year, I became an orientation leader, and as part of my work, I helped to help them in training, and anyone that worked on that team with a disability, we were able to train them. And then when they started the following year, they were able to bring the students around to a disability because they were trained in it. Another thing I would suggest is that maybe have students who are already on campus, or people from outside organisations who have lived experience with a visual impairment or whatever the disabilities, to come and talk to students on campus. Because I know that when we use our voice and we talk to students, that students who are in a class with you that don't know about your disability, they actually learn more from it, and they accommodate more to what you may need in a class if you ask them for help. Where if they don't know what your disability is, they kind of walk away from you, or they don't know what to do with different things when you're in a class. I would also like to see that staff and disability officers and students would have refresher courses that they would be able to join up to throughout the year. I'd like to see disability awareness campaigns being held throughout the year. I know the last couple of years, the Students' Union have done a lot around different disabilities. They have a week each year that has a different disability, and they do the whole week around it, and people can go in and take part in different activities that they're able to do. Last year we had a week where people were able to wear blindfolds, and they were able to make sandwiches. They were able to go out on a cycle with it on. They were able to do some training about how to lead a person who are blind or visually impaired around the campus, if they were leading them, helping them around college or around the class. And I think this would be very beneficial for all students and staff to take part in if it's on, because then they get more awareness around that disability, and that they may not know what that disability is or what the student is having to go through on a day-to-day basis. One thing I found which was helpful that was done in my class is that we suggested that what the students that were in my class, if I was doing teamwork, that the students would wear a blindfold, and they would sit with me in a class, and they would try and figure out how to get around the class, and how they could, so they would wear special glasses, and they would be able to read the material the way I would read my material, and then we would be able to work out a plan of how I was going to be able to present in that module for as part of my class. Now, some students would like this, other students didn't like to do it, but it gave them an understanding when I was trying to present. If I couldn't see what they were asking me to present, it gave them an idea, well, we need to change this, and we need to find a way to have this student participate in the class, so you don't feel like you're being left behind. Because a lot of the times I find, even when I'm in class, even in my fourth year, is that I don't have the notes, I don't have the books that I need the night before to read to go into a tutorial or a class, and I don't know where they're going with it, or I don't know what's going to happen in it. So it would be great that if we could get like reading lists, or that the note taker can have good notes and they are interested in what you're trying to take. Because even though they're not doing the degree, they're taking notes for you to be able to go and sit at home when you're going to your assignment. And if you can't understand the notes they're taking, then you don't feel like you can do an assignment to the best of your ability. So I think a lot of the times that I think a lot of awareness needs to be given to the class, and that the class needs to find out that from the start what the disability is for that student when they're in a class of 60 or 70. And if you're not keeping up with, especially around teamwork or different things you've participated in, that it's not because you don't want to take part, it's because you just can't see the material that has been given to you to take part in the class. So I'm, as part of the slides that are going to be put up, there is a video on how to guide a blind or partially sighted person. If you would like to have a look at that when the presentation is over. And also just to be aware that if you are on campus and you see, or you're out and about and you see someone who may be struggling, that there's no harm in going up and asking that person if they need help, or if you're in a class as a lecturer or as a student, that if you think somebody is struggling, that there's no harm in going down and saying to them, can I help you? Can I do anything for you? Sometimes we just don't like to ask for help. And sometimes we're just struggling with so much going on with materials and accessibility that we are afraid to maybe ask another person in the class to say, can you help me with this? But my big thing is that if you ask for help, that person can come and help you. And don't be worried that if you're falling behind in something, that you're relying on the other people to do the work for you, that it's not your fault that you're falling behind, that it's somebody has to do the extra work for you. So you need to be asking them to be on the same time as you. And if they don't give it, then you need to go and talk to your access officer and see what can be done to get things back on track. So I want to thank you very much for listening. And that's the end of my presentation.
Thank you so much, Gillian.
Is that okay?
That was brilliant. That was absolutely fantastic. You know, something that came across really strong for me there in your presentation was, I suppose, just looking at kind of empowerment. I just felt, you know, you really did take the bull by the horns. I love that piece on orientation. I myself, when I was in college, was a guide, and it's not actually till I actually started in GetAHEAD that I kind of got the proper training on certain things, like how do you guide someone and things like that. I think that you were an orientation leader, and you know, you took it on to train everybody else about these things. I think that's fantastic. It's really brilliant.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a big thing, but you could see it then. This year was the first year we actually had 3 or 4 visually impaired or blind students coming in, and the team that were doing guided tours or leading them, they knew how to guide them this year, where the first year I came in, I was left behind. No one knew what to do because they'd never had someone. They had someone who was blind before, but not someone, as I say, in the seeing world. So you have some vision, but you're losing your vision, so you're in between. They'd never dealt with someone like that before. So when I got part of the orientation leader, when I got my role, the first time I talked to the guy who was running and said, can we do this? Is this possible to do? And every year that I'm working with them, we do it in the training in the summer before they start in September.
That's brilliant. And that is like your first, you know, like you were kind of saying, it's not about that it, you know, you don't have the material there for you. It's your very first experience for a lot of people of college, that orientation time. So when you're able to see that someone is there and knows what you need, I mean, that's a key. That's so crucial, I think.
It is, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well, do we want to, I know that there was a few comments coming up there, and I might just ask Trevor if you wouldn't mind coming back on, and maybe I think we have 1 or 2 questions for you, Gillian, if you want to get a bit of water.
Hello. Yeah, well, Gillian, thanks a lot. That was absolutely fantastic. And again, I think, you know, what you're saying is going to resonate with a lot of people, especially the attendees here, just about that kind of awareness that you're generating. So people with impairments can just feel like they belong and feel included on campuses. There's a lot of things there. Well, first of all, a lot of great compliments. Mary McCarthy says, thanks so much, Gillian. I agree about awareness training for those giving orientation sessions should be mandatory in all colleges. And I think that's something probably Hannah kind of would advocate as well, because that's kind of getting that training in at the beginning of the year, you know, has payoff then throughout the whole academic year for all those kind of new students then for the year as well. And then so many kind of nice comments as well. And actually so many people are promoting bookshare.ie. Thanks Lena for that post about accessible titles, and Jane Ennis as well with more resources about Bookshare. I think you're just kind of getting people thinking about accessibility as well from what you're saying. So they're sharing resources, and just loads of people just saying, thank you, Gillian. Thanks, Gillian. Really well done. So I think even one person just had applause in brackets. So again,
it was very
appreciate that.
hard to do. It was very hard to get it down, because when it was an hour, it was very hard to get it down into kind of a bite-sized one. So I kind of took the main kind of points from it to try and get the main points across. So
yeah, well, Gillian, I think even that bit just about training alone is going to be kind of key, just for people when they go back to their institutions. Hopefully, they'll be asking whoever provides the training, staff training, to consider that kind of specific training about, you know, awareness of disabilities and how to interact and be appropriate and, you know, around students with disabilities. Again, it's all part of that making everyone feel like they belong. And sorry, I'm going to go to the Q&A because I will just chat too much. So Barbara Waters asks, what's your experience of staff in library and learning resources? Are they up to speed in helping with accessible books and documents?
The quick answer is no, they're not up to date, but they are doing work around it. So when I went in first year and second year, even my final year, we've had meetings with them, and they are working to get more accessible stuff in. But again, it's funding and it's training. So they know that there are, they can get accessible stuff, but it's, as I say, because I was the first person on the campus with my type of disability, they were learning with me. So I would say that if someone came in this year, the same disability, or if I came in this year, that they would have more experience of working with a student like me. And because even the Access Office and my lectures and all, we had to do like work, and it only kind of really came into place in final year. So it took the 3 years to get it going, because they had work. But as I found out, that students, if they come in now, they would have a plan of where to go with that. So it would be much easier to get stuff accessible for them.
Okay, and just you're saying something there that's getting me thinking. Like, so when universities start thinking about, you know, purchasing kind of online books or accessible books, like, is that part of the procurement process? Like, as in, is accessible books seen as a mandatory as part of, like, things that universities or colleges will purchase? So, I mean, I would love to kind of see, you know, from the very, very beginning, when colleges and libraries and that are thinking about procuring, you know, online systems, that accessibility is seen as essential in order for the procurement to go through fully. So I'd love to see that. And again, sorry, another question from Barbara Waters. Are note takers able to give you the notes electronically in good time for you to study?
It depends on the note taker.
Okay.
So sometimes I have really good note takers, and I would literally they would be in the class with me, and I would have them, I would finish a lecture and I would have the notes within an hour. Others would say, right, you're not getting them. And the time limit I would have would be, the max would be 48 hours, but some of them would leave it for a week. So then you have to chase them, and you chase them, because I could be in a lecture, say, not for them, it's not as bad for my master's, but then the undergrad, I was like, there'd be an lecture on a Tuesday, and then I'd have one on the Thursday, and the notes from the Tuesday I would need to have read by the Thursday, or have a piece read. So it depends on the way the note taker works, and how, as I would say, how diligent the note taker is. Because with my two subjects I did, all I kept getting from note takers was, well, it's taken me a while to do your note because I'm not interested in your subjects, they're too dense, they're too hard for me to understand, so it's taken me longer to do your notes for you. So it depends on the note taker and
Okay.
how quick they do them.
Okay. So at least you're probably in a service that at least you can approach your disability staff about this kind of issue anyway. So that's good as well.
Yeah.
There's a question here from Anne Fogarty. She just wants to say, can I ask what technologies you use?
Yeah, so I use Zoom Text Fusion is the one I
Okay.
use. And then I use the one on so I use my iPhone, and then I use the
Okay.
software on my iPhone.
Okay. And how do you find Zoom Text Fusion? Is it...
It's good, but it's not great. What it does is that a lot of my documents would be, because it's social policy, there'd be a lot of tables and graphs in it. So if it sees that, it doesn't like that. So it'll read plain text, but it doesn't read images, or it doesn't read PowerPoints if they've images, or because they see them as pictures. So then I have to get somebody to actually physically take them out and put them into another document, or record the whole document for me. So,
and I think that kind of goes back to a point you made in your presentation, isn't it, about staff being aware of how to make accessible online content as well. So, you know, that kind of awareness of training of like how to make accessible documents and PowerPoints for someone like yourself would be key. And again, don't take very much effort, just to kind of get the key things done.
Like when I went back to that said lecture, as soon as I got them and explained to her, she actually spent the whole of a weekend and she totally changed the PowerPoints around. But when she changed them around for me, other people in the class were saying, thank you for doing that, because we couldn't figure it out either, but didn't want to ask.
Wow.
So
can we get an award for that staff member? I just feel like that person deserves something. Yeah, that's phenomenal.
Yeah,
okay.
Well, listen, I don't know if we're going to get a chance to go through many more questions. I think we might actually just, if it's okay, Gillian and Trevor, we might just ask everyone to come back into the room. That's been waiting in the wings so patiently and kindly. So can we bring back Hannah, Vicky, Christina? Once again, guys, thank you so much for an absolutely phenomenal session. I really am sorry that we didn't get around to all of the questions today, but I do think it is good to maybe bring the session to a close with some final reflections from you guys, because it's all about making it as student-centered as possible. So who better to finish off the session than yourselves? So does anyone have any final reflections? Any thoughts that came to mind kind of over the last while, maybe that you think it would be important to voice, considering that there is, a wide range of people, from educators, policymakers, kind of listening now?
Well, I'd say definitely more funding to the colleges to provide the support services that are needed. And I think, the online with the disability office would be actually a positive step forward, for disclosure.
How about yourself, Christina? Any final reflections?
Well, the two things I took from it was disclosure and accessibility was the big things that, the funding for colleges big time with laptops and that, just, provide them with laptops with the software on it and make things more accessible, like documents, either by printing out things maybe, or just, putting it on a different kind of software so everybody can access documents and files and lecture notes, instead of the struggle of having to go the hard way in like note takers and that. Just make things more accessible, I think would be a massive step forward.
Absolutely. And I think Trevor and Lorraine are definitely looking at this with their accessibility webinar series. If I'd be so cheeky
shameless plug.
A shameless plug. So they've already had one on how to make Word documents accessible, and you've another one, is it next Tuesday?
I think, is it next Tuesday? It's the Tuesday after the bank holiday Monday. So
I've
whenever
forgotten
that is.
where days are.
Time is blurring. I have a feeling it's Tuesday week.
Tuesday week.
Possibly. But anyway,
it's on the website, isn't it?
It's on the website, yes. Yes, it sure is. But like that, so that's why I suppose I'm resonating with what Gillian is saying as well, because again, I just think that staff training is just so important, because that is really the key to kind of addressing a lot of these kind of issues as well. Just whether it's about awareness of disability, or training staff about just simple changes they can make to the documents and the content they provide students, as well as recording as well. So what Christina's point about recording lectures as well, just really, really important.
And how about yourself, Gillian? Any final reflections or kind of things that kind of have come up for you that you'd like to say?
Just just be a little bit more aware, and a little bit that don't, I suppose, the best way to say it is, don't assume that every student in your class is the same. Some people are in there with a disability that maybe not have the courage or the confidence to disclose what they have. But just be aware and accessibility of documents, and that your students are not all the same in your class.
Absolutely. God, I feel like there's really a rally going on here, Hannah. I hope you're going to be capturing all of this fantastic momentum and bringing it to the forum or wherever, you know, to the Twitter. I hope that this continues, you know.
Yeah. I think it's an important point as well, that I am continually impressed by Christina, Vicky and Gillian over the couple of months that we've been working on this panel and getting to know each other, and you sharing your experiences. But I think it is also very important to be aware of the fact that not everyone is where these three women are in their journey, and not all students are so able to articulate their needs and what supports that they need. So I think it's important that we take away from this the importance of that awareness piece is first and foremost so important, so that, you know, when a student does pick up the courage to disclose or does reach out for that support that they need, that they're met with understanding, or at least the ability to be flexible and to learn. So I think that's really important.
Brilliant. And I know that there is the student learner survey, which was mentioned earlier on the impact of COVID, which Hannah was working on, and that is available on the GetAHEAD website. And I think the student forum, people can contact yourself, Hannah, directly, is it, if they want to be involved with the network of students basically that are coming together through the student forum. I think I put up your email address there, and I think that is going to be fantastic. I'm really looking forward to seeing where that goes from there, and where you guys all go from here. I think maybe, Trevor, do we want to talk maybe a little bit about next week before we send everyone off for a lovely weekend?
Next week? Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, judging by the way time is flying, I'm guessing next week will feel like tomorrow. It is just going way too quickly. So, yeah. Oh, well, really? Okay. Will I read it out? Okay.
Yes, that would be great.
So week nine. Oh my God, week 9 of 10 weeks of conferences delivered by GetAHEAD is going to involve the theme of developing inclusive cultures. So it's the usual thing. Go to our Conference 2020 webpage to secure a place in this online party, where we will again investigate and explore the exciting topic of UDL and inclusion with 3 speakers. So the first one is by Dr. John Bullion. He's from Texas, and he's a bit of a character, and his talk is about shift happens through strategic actions, preconceived notions, perpetuated fallacies, and principal perceptions led to Texas around. If you are like me and you're not quite sure what that means, then come here next week to figure out what that's all about. And then the next one is by Jonathan Stahl from Edinburgh Napier University. I mean, like, that is just such a cool university name. So it's entitled, I'm in the Inclusive Practice Program, Scottish Perspective on Growing Inclusive Inclusion by Design. So again, I'm really kind of curious about that one. And then oh no, is there more? There's 4 next week.
Yes.
So Maureen, sorry, yeah, I know. Maureen from Sligo is delivering one called Changing the Culture Around Inclusion Through Effective Measurable Tools. And I think that kind of goes back to a point we had in a presentation a few weeks ago. So I'm guessing she's probably advocating culture change through like kind of documentation of practices, and maybe kind of strategies she's kind of evolved over time. So that'll be interesting how that evolves. And then the final one is from Liz Moynihan in Kinsale. So I think, has Liz presented before in GetAHEAD?
2 years ago, at the conference,
So it's called, her presentation is called A Warm and Supportive Virtual Environment, COVID-19 Supports Provided by Kinsale College of Further Education. So that sounds like it's going to be very practical. And I think, again, in this kind of climate, it's going to kind of warrant a lot of attention as well. So stay in touch, folks. And again, our usual hashtag is hashtag AHEAD2020. And if you're on Twitter, use the handle @AHEAD Ireland. There's loads of tweets up there now, so feel free to go and discuss. So each of the presenters here as well, Gillian, Vicky, and Christina have kindly volunteered their Twitter handles as well, so you can chat and ask follow-up questions. So for those people who didn't get their Q&A time, you can ask the three presenters today a follow-up question. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and we would definitely like to emphasize, thank you so much everyone that's been participating so far in the webinar series. We really hope that you're going to be with us for the next 2 weeks, which is hard to believe, it's nearly 10 weeks. While we have talked a lot about learners today in relation to higher education, we do also, you know, look to speak and link in with learners from the further education and training sector as well. We have kind of through our project with Solace, but that is a key area that I suppose when we look at the student forum, when we look at the student survey, they are kind of inclusive. And just if anyone out there is a student there coming from an FET background, we're very much talking to you as much as the higher ed as well. We really appreciate everyone's time, especially all the students. Thank you so much to the panelists. Thank you so much to Trevor. It's been fantastic. I hope you'll join us on Twitter later on and that you have a fantastic weekend. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks.
You.